I'm really pleased now to introduce to you our tech talk given by Markus, who's an AI lead and data scientist at Capgemini. Marijn will be discussing for us now how to use AI for social good. And if you were around this morning when we opened the session, he might be familiar to some of you. He has a particular talent for singing. Please welcome him on stage.
Good day, everyone. My name is Markus. I do data and statistics. I've been doing that for like 5-10 years. And to be honest with you, I was scared shitless back in the day, because I was told I'd never get a job. I was doing research on bias in human behavior using algorithms. They called it sociology and criminology, and my dad told me, nobody's ever going to hire you for that. Enter the labor market, everyone's screaming about bias and algorithms. And I got a job as a data scientist. And then a few years later, everyone started calling it AI, and now I have to talk to you about AI, even though to me it's just data and statistics. Now, today, we've seen a lot of cases so far. Hell, this is the second day. You're all tired, right? Yeah, I see moving heads. Oh, God. So we've seen plenty of examples today and yesterday of how we are applying AI for advanced analytics, forecasting, detecting people on camera feeds, talking to chatbots or talking to dogs. I like the talking to dogs. But I see that a lot of these applications of AI are used for profit, to increase sales, sometimes at the cost of our climate. I see that we use AI to increase our security and our safety at the cost of our privacy. And we use it to increase ads revenue at the cost of our society. Now, I don't have the answers to all those questions, but I'd like to lighten the mood and take a step back with you and see how we can use AI for good. First of all, collaboration with AWS. Did you notice that Amazon doesn't have a talk here today, but everyone talks about Amazon? They're the real winners of this summit. Now, did you know that you can track unique whales by their tail fluke? So not an iris scan, but a tail scan. You can look at the notches and the scars and the shape to figure out if this Free Willy is the same Free Willy that you saw on the other side of the globe 30 years ago. And scientists spend a lot of their time investigating tail flukes to see and store images worldwide, everyone who takes pictures of whales, to track whale populations worldwide. But that's boring work. It takes a lot of time to match one picture with 1,000, like Lisa Steiner over here does, a researcher. So we built Fluke Tracker, an app, really, that looks at each and individual tail, matches it against thousands to tell you which Free Willy you saw, how they're migrating, how their population is doing, where they're being hunted to this day, where they're disappearing. And thus we use AI to help keep track of these beautiful creatures. Now, let's take a shift from the biggest of creatures to the smallest ones. Can anyone tell me what this is? Plankton, exactly. Well, diatoms, algae, basically. The tiny microscopic things that float around in our oceans are eaten by whales. But these tiny things help us solve a very big problem. And we're collaborating with the University of Berkeley on this, because they help us figure out climate change. How the hell does it figure out climate change, you might ask? Well, the problem is that we don't know how climate change occurred in our planet in the past. We started taking measurements in 1850, meaning all the time before then, we can reverse engineer based on CO2 content of the soil, tree analysis. This is something climatologists and paleoclimatologists do. I hope I got that word right. But the further back you go, like millions of years, the more estimates you are making, the more you are guessing based on statistics and proximity what the temperature was at the time. We need more data. And that's exactly what we're doing here. And you can check out the live demo if you want by scanning the QR code in the upper right or upper left, one of the two, after the session. Now, the thing with these scientists is that they, like Lisa Steiner, have to look at plankton, fossil plankton from millions of years ago, and compare it to thousands of others to figure out what the temperature was. because the shape and size of plankton and the prevalence of different species says us so much about what climate was like on Earth back then. So we built models, both handcrafted ones and deep learning ones, to identify and classify these algae. Because we wouldn't be data scientists if we just built an AI model. No, we built multiple, and we checked and tested and verified which ones are the best ones. And as it turns out, our best model can classify these plankton with 88.5% accuracy, saving the paleoclimatologist a boatload of time in figuring out how climate change occurred in the past. Now, we have one problem here. I'm profiling plankton. Like, the plankton might not mind, because I'm not misgendering the plankton. Does plankton have a gender? I'm not sure. I think it's a plant. But the model, the AI just saying, OK, this is this type of plankton, doesn't work. But this is why we used Lime modeling to make it explainable by explaining how the algorithm reached its conclusion by highlighting the specific pixels and shape the model saw and based its conclusion upon. And this is how with plankton, but the same goes for people, or I don't know, cows, depending on what you're working on, how we explain how the model reached its conclusion. Then it's no longer profiling, then it's just evidence-based decision-making. And using these tiny creatures and AI, we can figure out a little bit better how climate change occurred in the past and how it might influence us in our future. Speaking of the future, who's looking forward to this? Raise your hands. Yeah, I see a lot of hands. Well, I'm not, to be honest, because I think football, or soccer for the uninitiated, is dreadful. It's boring. It's 90 to 100 minutes of looking at people chase the ball. Sometimes it gets exciting when they kick the ball in a goalpost or somebody gets a foot to the face. But that's like 5 minutes tops. And I know you might be disagreeing with me now. I see angry faces. But you dads in the audience, I know that when your kid is playing football, you're staring at your phone 2/3 of the time. Admit it. Well, I got you. We have the solution for you. Because we built an AI that summarizes football matches. And we hope to do the same for tennis and especially baseball, because baseball is even more dreadful. Or I don't know, you can do the same for burglary or escaping cattle if you are so inclined. What exactly we do? We use video and audio analysis to recognize the highlights. So when the goal is scored or somebody gets a gruesome injury, the good stuff, you know. Again, hit up the QR code if you want to see a live demo. And we track those highlights and use those to render a new 5-minute video so you don't have to look at the entire match. And well, see for yourself, because one demonstration says more than 1,000 PowerPoints. Scan that thing. And play around. Select a match, select video and or audio analysis. Play around with the thresholds, and if you're a data scientist, click the other end to see some of the analytics. I hope we can use this for media feeds and political talks in the future too, because those two are dreadful. Now, we've talked about helping whales, plankton, and people and football fans. Now let's talk people. Because this is Project Farm. It's an AI platform that we have been developing over the last 2-3 years for farmers and smallholder farmers in developing nations. Again, last time, hit up the QR code for a demo. Did you know that 70% of the food in the world is produced not by super farms with giant tractors and drones and all that stuff, but by smallholder farmers with like 2-3 hectares of land and a donkey? It is according to the United Nations. So if we are facing rising populations on Earth, the counts are increasing, and we need to feed more people. How are we going to feed more people? By upping the production of the industry that produces a minority of the food in the world, or by aiding the people that produce the majority of the food in the world? We are here to help the smallholder farmers in countries like Kenya, Zimbabwe, and India. And it's specifically India that we're working on right now. Hands up in the air, anyone from India? Only a few. That's okay. So we are many things. We're data scientists, architects, engineers, But let's be honest, we're not farmers. I can barely keep my own plants alive in my house. So we partner with NGOs operative in Kenya, like Agrix, and in India, like Change Initiatives, that aid us to build these platforms. Now, this is the version from Kenya. Right now, we're building a new version for India, where we add satellite imagery analysis to look at the plot sizes. So based on the satellite picture, you can see the boundaries of the farmer's field, so you know how big the farming field is. We analyze flood risks, tree counts, and track tree counts over time to look at deforestation and fire hazards, as well as measure the soil organic carbon using hyperspectral images. What the heck does that mean? We measure the CO2 in the soil so we can figure out if this farming is a net contributor or a detractor of CO2 in our air. And you combining all of that, we are now building this new platform for, this is the West Bengal region in India, where people to this day employ very traditional farming methods. Did you know that 50% of people in India work in farming? Well, now you do, 50%. And we aim to improve their farm yields. Why? Well, we have soil analysis. We can see the fertility. We know how the plot size. We know the weather in the local region. We know what they're planting. We can combine all these aforementioned things to give them a prediction of what their yield will be end of season and how to increase and optimize their yield. So they'll harvest more, which they usually sell to send their kids to school if they don't use it to feed their kids. Because for all of our knowledge of AI and all of our pride in the things we achieve, I think knowledge is worthless if you don't share it. And our AI is worthless if we don't share it with these people. Now, I've said AI a lot. Most of the speakers here have said AI a lot. I'm sure you're getting tired of it. I would like to mention that AI is whatever machines haven't done yet. Some people already mentioned that too. But it was actually Larry Tesler, God bless him, passed away last year, who said this in 1979, which is a long time ago, but it's the only time-independent definition of AI we have. Right now, it's all neural nets and deep learning. In 10, 20 years, I'm pretty sure it won't be. Because the only way to actually do AI, I noticed over the last 2 years, especially when business asks for AI, is to stop talking it and instead tackle a problem. Be it losing money, losing people, being unable to find fraud, modeling refugee flows. There's too many people with burnouts. You take that problem, you solve that problem using data, because that's data science, solving data problems using scientific methods. And then the business can go brag about doing AI on LinkedIn or on a stage like this. The only way to do AI is to stop talking AI and talk data and business problems instead. Coleman, 1990. And as I said, it's about data, but it's also about these people. Because these are just some of the beautiful people that I get to collaborate with to build all this cool stuff, to find fraud, to predict burnouts, to model refugees, and to keep our streets safe. And they do that besides all the stuff we do for whales, people, and our Earth. Because it's not about the accuracy of your AI. It's not about the prediction being too slow or too high. It's not about the size of your training set, nor is it about the depth of your neural net. It's not about the precision or the recall. It's not even about your data being big or small. It's about the problems you solve, because in a few years, we won't be talking AI at all. But I'll still be doing data, and we'll still be using it. Same models, more computing power, the data quality will still be shit. And I don't care, because I just want to help people's lives. And the data and the algorithms and all the AI are just tools to prove we can achieve what we believe we could. So if we're doing AI, then let's use AI for good. Thank you. And I know it all sounds cool, but let's face it, guys and ladies, a lot of the time, it looks like this.
Marijn, thank you so much for that. Any questions, please do raise your hands in the audience. We'd love to get your thoughts on what you've just heard there. Any thoughts? There's got to be some thoughts in those. I can hear the cogs kind of, turning, no?
Don't tell me you agree with me.
Lovely,
Come on.
thank you. We'll come to you at the back just after this gentleman in the front, if that's okay. Thank you.
Hi, so this is Tobias. I have one question. So all your projects, your like farming and analysis of the soil, who is basically funding those projects?
Good question. I always like money questions. Who is funding it, and why don't we go even further? How much are they giving you?
That differs per project. A lot of these are pro bono, and I started out at Capgemini 5 years ago as a, data scientist, but nobody was doing data science and AI back then. It was all big data. Remember big data? And what I found is that as a consultancy firm, or as any organization, you can talk, but if you don't walk the talk, if you can't prove that you can do this stuff, you're not going to get projects. And that's how I convinced my multinational overlords to start funding these pro bono projects that we use just to show and also educate and train people and help out some of my university friends in the meantime to show that we can do this stuff. Because there's no better training. If you're building POCs or training project, that goes for students too, you might as well use those to do some good. So the funding is just me begging a lot and asking a lot, but it's becoming more and more structural because of that. And some of these are now getting self-sustaining, like the farm project, where the farmers themselves are also aided with credit, fertilizer and seeds by the local actors, and we just give them the data and the analytics, and that NGO passes it around.
I hope that answers your question. We had another one just at the back there. Hi.
Yeah, hi. I'm Victor from Erasmus Tech Community of Rotterdam. I was wondering, you mentioned that it had to be, so we had to use AI for the greater good. What do you think about the Tesla bot and the Amazon Astro? Is it for the greater good, or is it too risky?
Your question was about the Amazon rainforest?
No, the Tesla bot.
Is it for the greater good?
Yes.
Technology...
Sorry, can I just stop you there? That's really, can we just get the general slide on there? That's just, in my eye, I can feel like a, thank you. Don't know if anybody else was feeling that as well, but thank you.
I like being on screen, but I digress. Good question. I don't believe technology is good or evil at all. It can't be. It can be used for good and bad. And the Tesla bot right now is mainly pushing technological boundaries. It is not. It's being developed. It's not being applied anywhere yet. So
it's not for the greater good then?
Not yet.
Yeah.
It's not being used yet. We're still developing it. But I would say that something that's being developed that could be used for good is a good thing. That's technological progress.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
Oh.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. But so how do you see the future? Would it, so I think Elon Musk did mention that he wanted the robot to maybe do your groceries. Mm-hmm. How do you see that? Is it maybe too risky? Is it really for the greater good to have robots running around making your groceries?
Let me answer your question by making an observation about this morning. When in a talk, we were talking about science fiction and the future and about how a speaker said how he wants to expose the positivity about the positivity, the outlook on AI in our future, and write science fiction about happy futures. Because our real life outlook on the technology in the future is everything but positive. And that reminded me of William Gibson and good old sci-fi writers from 30 years ago, who wrote about dreadful dystopian sci-fi, while we thought the technological future was very positive. And now it's the opposite side around. And now I know kids who are reading 1984 and going like, this isn't a dystopian future story, it's a love story, it's boring, reality is more frightening.
Yeah, interesting. Do you know, I just listening to that question, it's just reminded me that in the years that I've been doing this conference, nobody's mentioned the words this year, driverless cars, which was like such a buzz thing 5 years ago, and it seems to have just kind of gone away, which is really interesting. Did you have a question? Sorry, you did. Hi.
I did. Oh, thank you very much. Just obviously one of the biggest challenges we've got is climate change, and there's a whole track next door. But in your opinion, what's the #1 use case that AI could be focused on to help improve climate change?
Everything. I know you're not asking me, but I would say everything. Go for it.
The big danger here is that that I see too many people jumping to the holistic view. So what's the biggest change we could make? How can we help climate change as a whole? I disagree with that view. First of all, I mistrust anyone who starts talking about holistic views.
But where can it help? So I've got to speed you up there because we're running out of time.
They usually talk too much and code too little. I think we should start low and go bottom up rather than try to enforce AI top down. Because I saw a CXO talk about...
So can you just give me an example of what you mean? So, you know, the question was where exactly you want to see AI kind of coming, call to action to help climate change, right? Yeah, the biggest opportunity, where might that be?
The biggest opportunity is one we're not talking about. Technology, fintech companies, they're all doing it. It's the governments that can make the biggest difference to people worldwide, but they're lagging behind big time. So that's what I spend most of my time on.
So I didn't get the answer, though. What was the answer, did you say?
AI can make the biggest difference in government.
In government. Sorry, thank you. Thank you, forgive me, I wasn't quite clear on that. Marijn, I have to leave it here, but thank you so much for that. So I hope that's answered your question as well. Give him a round of applause, please. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy to be back.